Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series, Rescue the Rockies. And the rescue of the Rockies has gone pretty well so far, as the 2033 season is now complete, and for the second time in the past 3 years, our Rockies are World Series champions. 95 win regular season, which, although it won the National League West, was only the fifth best record in baseball. Got off to a slow start with an awful month of May, 8-20 record, but were the best team in baseball over the second half of the season, and certainly continued that in the postseason with a relatively straightforward run to the title. We took out the Milwaukee Brewers 3-1 in the divisional series. In the National League Championship Series, a 4-2 win over the Marlins. We took a 3-0 lead, then lost games 4 and 5 in Miami, but clinched the series in Game 6 at home. And then a relatively easy victory in the World Series, sweeping the Chicago White Sox 4-0, as several of you have noted for me. The 23-3 victory that we had in game number 1 of that series was the most runs ever scored in a World Series game in history, and to have done it with only 2 home runs is a pretty crazy number. 2-run win in Game 2, a 2-run win in Game 4, and a dominant 5-1 victory in game number 3. Kevin Roberts Jr., for the second time in 3 years, is not only a World Series champion, but also the World Series most valuable player. And our focus in this episode is going to be our annual roster review, check in on how everybody has done over the course of the full season. Last time we checked in was the midway point of the year, just before the All-Star break. And a lot has changed since then. As I mentioned, we had an awful 8-20 record in May. We were a team with a losing record well into July, but over those final 3+ months of the season, we were an incredible 58-22 in our last 80 games. Ended up first in the National League in runs scored, and as you can see, first or second in the vast majority of offensive categories. Ended up fourth in the National League in runs allowed, and in the top half of the league in most pitching categories, the only exception being BABIP, where we ranked 12th. For the way we've played defense over the course of this series, 12th in defensive efficiency and 6th in zone rating, not particularly impressive. But when all was said and done, we had a 4th consecutive National League West title, an 8th consecutive trip to the playoffs, and most importantly, a second World Series championship. So we are not going to complain about all of the little details. It was definitely a very successful 2033 season here for our Colorado Rockies. And we'll start our roster review taking a look at our outstanding pitching staff. Noah Schultz, a very strong contender to perhaps win the 3rd Cy Young Award of his career. 15-5 record with a 3.36 ERA this year, 256 strikeouts, led the league in strikeout to walk ratio, FIP minus, and pitcher WAR at 6.9. Schultz, who we signed to that big 6-year, $270 million contract before last season, has now played 2 full years with us. We've got him for $45 million next year, and then he does have the ability to opt out basically any season after that, given the contract that we gave him to get him signed. But with a second-place finish in the Cy Young Award voting a year ago, chance at winning it this year, a couple of All-Star appearances, and now a World Series championship. Certainly not going to complain about what we've accomplished since we gave that big money to Schultz. Leo Martinez, who finished 3rd in the Cy Young Award voting a year ago, could be doing something similar this year. 16 wins again, a 16-7 record, 3.24 ERA, 198 strikeouts, and he led the National League with 65.6 quality start percentage, put up a 4.1 WAR, and the 23-year-old remains a particularly effective player in the playoffs. Over his major league career, he's now 41-17 with a 2.84 ERA, 1.57 ERA plus, and a 77 FIP minus. When we look at the postseason, the numbers are perhaps even more impressive. 6-3 record in 10 starts with a 2.48 earned run average, 1.83 ERA plus, and a glittering 50 FIP minus over the course of his brief but storied postseason career, with 2 world championships already at the age of just 23. So barring something very strange and unexpected happening, I would expect to have our top 2 starters, Schultz and Martinez, back next year. Our number 3 starter, Dylan Jordan, who we picked up a couple off seasons ago in a trade with the Angels, is a little bit more questionable. He led the league with 18 wins a year ago, had only half that many this year, 9-8 record with a 4.31 ERA, but still put up a very strong 3.6 WAR for us with a good 89 FIP minus. He is heading into arbitration year, set to make about $13 million. So he's definitely going to be very expensive, but still is certainly an above average major league pitcher. And at that price tag, he's not unreasonably priced for what he is at all. So tend to think he will be back with us, even though he was not quite as productive this year as last season. Andrew Painter, once again, was our 4th starter this year, 10-10 record with a 4.80 ERA, but he did put up a 3.1 WAR. He is signed to a pretty reasonable contract for another several years with us. You can see making $4 to $5 million a year going forward. Although he is not a great pitcher by any stretch of the imagination, for that kind of money, an experienced 4th or 5th starter who is proven to be a solid contributor to a couple of world championship squads, likely to be back as our number 4 next year. The 5th starter role could have a little more volatility, and certainly depending on what we do with Jordan, that could change things as well. Brian Stoops, former first-round pick out of New Mexico State, made his major league debut this year in the bullpen and ended up moving into our 5th starter role for the final 2/3 of the season, basically. 5-6 record with a 4.49 ERA, put up a 1.2 WAR. Still think there's some potential future development for Stoops. He's making the major league minimum right now. Certainly would think that at this point he's probably penciled in as our 5th starter, although that could certainly change depending on what we decide to do over the course of the off season. Similar to our starting rotation, the bullpen was very good this year. Closer Wellington Herrera, 36 saves. ERA did go up a full run to 3.73, and his WAR was more than cut in half to barely under a win below replacement. But overall, still had a pretty solid year. 33 shutdowns to 12 meltdowns. 69 strikeouts in 60 innings. Pretty useful player, good left-handed reliever, set to be making about $6 million, or actually exactly $6 million each of the next 2 years. So as a closer, that is definitely a bargain price here in 2033. Have a decision to make with Luke Little, which we should be getting used to at this point. We signed him to a 3-year contract 3 years ago, but both the 2nd and 3rd year there were team options, which we obviously exercised. He is now potentially headed to free agency. Pitched just 34 games for us this year, only 30 1/3 innings pitched, but was very effective with a 1.78 earned run average and 11.6 strikeouts per 9 innings. Don't love the number of batter he walks, an ugly 21 walks in 30 1/3 innings this year. but he's actually looking for potentially a little less money than his previous contract, $5.5 million a year for 2 seasons. So I think it's conceivable that we could consider bringing Little back as another lefty in our bullpen next year. Rich Hannon will definitely be back. Picked him up in a trade with the Padres last offseason, and he put up a sub-3 ERA over 60 and a third innings for us, 20 shutdowns to just 7 meltdowns as a setup man, almost a win above replacement, very strong 145 ERA plus and 87 FIP minus. So thinking that stricken Hannon is going to be an important and, since he's still making the major league minimum, cost-effective part of our bullpen next year. Justin Gibson, also a very important reliever for us, although he's getting more expensive. The 26-year-old set to make about $5 million next year, but that is still a bargain too if we tried to sign him to an extension. I can't offer him that right now because I've made the arbitration offer to him, but he is looking for $20 million a year in some of the later years of a contract, so still very expensive for a reliever. All he has done is lead the league in holds 3 consecutive years, his 3 full years in the majors, led the National League in games each of the past 2 years, 9-5 record with a 3.51 ERA. He struck out over 100 batters every year of his career, despite never even reaching 93 innings pitched. WAR of close to 2 on the season, and the former 4th-round draft pick is certainly going to be an important pitcher for us going forward. Bill Douglas spent the year mostly in the majors with us, but did go down to Albuquerque in AAA for a little over a month. Not a great season, 5.26 ERA over 39 and a third innings pitched, and he's below replacement level. He is a guy who's still making the major league minimum, and he does have 2 option years left, so very conceivable that he will be on the 40-man roster. I think the big question with Bill Douglas is does he make the 26-man roster out of spring training, or is his only opportunity to be on the big club if we have some injury issues? Lefty Jackson Peavy, his first year with us in Colorado, he was a guy we picked up in a trade last offseason. 3.79 ERA with 79 strikeouts over 73 and 2/3 innings pitched, almost a win above replacement. He is a guy who prefers to be a starter, even though his stamina is not exceptional, kind of a 5-inning pitcher, but looking to make close to $5 million in arbitration this upcoming season. Given that he was a solid arm out of the bullpen for us, he can definitely eat some innings, and he can start for us if we needed him to. I think Peavy will likely be back with us next year as well. Adonis Valer, another guy that we traded for last offseason, 4.26 ERA over 57 innings pitched. Allowed 10 home runs over those 57 innings pitched, which is certainly not good, but he did strike out a ridiculous 80 batters, 12.6 strikeouts per 9 innings. Valer headed to arbitration for the first time, set to make a little over $2 million. Our expectation is that he will be an important lefty in our bullpen again next season. Joely Garcia, rental for us this year, who helped contribute to the World Series title, had a 3.80 ERA for us over 23 and 2/3 innings, 11 strikeouts per 9, half a win above replacement. He, unfortunately, is looking for almost $25 million a year for the next 4 years. I know recently one of the viewers mentioned that there was allegedly a fix in the latest patch that made reliever salary demands more realistic. Don't know if that doesn't apply to us, since this game was started before that patch, and it's one of those things that only happens in a new game, but certainly the demand that Garcia is looking for makes it extremely unlikely that he will be back with us next year. Last two guys are guys who could be fighting for a fifth starter spot if they are on the team. In the case of Isaiah Shader, though, I think it's unlikely that we bring back both Dylan Jordan and Isaiah Shader. So it's possible that we could be moving on from Shader. Former sixth-round pick has primarily been a starting pitcher for us for the first 5 years of his career. But he did lose that spot in the rotation to Mr. Stoops this year. Ended up going 6-6 with an ERA of close to 5, just barely above replacement level. And the 27-year-old is set to be making close to $5 million in arbitration next year. If he's not going to be a member of the rotation, given his overall pitching profile, I don't know that he's worth close to $5 million as a reliever. And I also don't know if we can afford close to $13 million for Dylan Jordan and close to $5 million for Isaiah Shader, which is why I kind of think if we bring Jordan back, probably move on from Shader if he's clearly going to be in a relief role. If we move on from Jordan and Shader realistically could be a fifth starter for us next year, then maybe we do bring him back. A guy who makes me think we perhaps do end up moving on from Shader is Bernie Barrera. One of the better prospects in our organization, was 13-3 with an ERA just over 4 in AAA for us. Came up in September, started game 162 for us, put up a 154 ERA with 15 strikeouts over 11 2/3 innings. The 22-year-old, a former scouting discovery 5 years ago at this point out of the Dominican, making the major league minimum, but certainly looks like he could be a useful right-handed long reliever for us, and certainly could also compete for the fifth spot in our rotation. So as I think about things, Schultz and Martinez, obviously the 1 and 2 pitchers as we talked about. If we bring Dylan Jordan back, he's number 3. Andrew Painter's number 4, and then we likely have a battle between the youngsters Brian Stoops and Bernie Barrera for our fifth starter, and then a long relief role, and presumably the first guy who would go into the rotation if we had any injuries or ineffectiveness. If that's the route that we follow, I think we probably move on from Isaiah Shader, as we've talked about, definitely moving on from Joely Garcia. The only other really question is what we do with Luke Little, as I think Herrera's back, Hannon's back, Gibson's back, Peavy's back, Valera's back, and as we talked about, Bill Douglas is back most likely as well, even though there's not necessarily a guaranteed spot in the bullpen for him. And if you're wondering, I did shop Isaiah Shader when I was catching up on some things offline before I started this episode. Not a robust trade market for him. So I'd love to get something interesting in return for him if we decide to move on from him to save some money. But unfortunately, doesn't look like it. Close to $5 million. Most of the other teams in the league value him all that highly. We'll turn now to our position players, and given that we unfortunately had a $14 million reduction in our budget for next year by ownership despite winning the World Series, this is the position group where we're likely facing some more significant and potentially even more painful turnover. Chris Boone has been our backup catcher for the last couple years. Was an awful offensive player a season ago. He was a solid major league offensive player this past season, hit .281 with 9 extra base hits and 135 at-bats, put up a win above replacement for us. Solid defensively, although we don't necessarily think he's ever going to be a big-time bat. But he's still making the major league minimum, still his 2 option years left. Certainly a realistic player to consider in the mix is our backup catcher for the foreseeable future. Our potential starting catcher next year could be Mike Girard, former first-round supplemental pick in 2029, who made his major league debut for us this year, hit .276 in 58 at-bats when he came up in September after Drew Romo got hurt. Like Drew Romo, he is an outstanding defensive catcher. Like Drew Romo at this point, he is not a particularly interesting offensive player, but set to make the major league minimum next year. And because of that, it's not inconceivable that Gerard could be our starting catcher next year. Romo is one of those difficult decisions that I've mentioned. The 32-year-old has been a very important player for us over the course of this playthrough. Two-time All-Star, three-time Gold Glove winner, two-time World Series champion, outstanding defensive catcher with a captain personality. But he's now 32 years old and fragile physically. We've got a team option for him next season at $12 million, the final year of an 8-year contract. We signed with him very early in this playthrough. And he has deteriorated offensively over the past 3 years, from a 112 WRC plus to a 69 WRC plus to a 56 WRC plus this year. You can see his WAR has gone from 4.3 to 2.2 to 0.8. Given that Jared is a very similar defensive catcher, and at this point, Romo, despite the fact that over the course of his career he's been a close to league average offensive player, is no longer anywhere close to a league average offensive player. Probably is going to make sense to decline that option on Romo, save some money that we can invest into most likely scouting and player development, but possibly into the lower end of the free agent market. Going to have an interesting decision on another guy, first baseman Matt McElroy, this upcoming offseason. He has been our first baseman against left-handed pitching for the last couple years and been a pretty productive offensive player for us. Hit .251 with 15 homers and 42 ribbies and 215 at-bats this year. Ultimately put up a 126 WRC plus. So his bat against left-handed pitching is pretty proficient. The issue is that he's no longer going to be making the major league minimum next year, set to be making about $2.5 million a year. Given that we only prefer to play him against left-handed pitching, and he is not a particularly talented defensive player, it is conceivable that we move on from him. He's really a first baseman, corner outfield type, and he's a respectable defensive first baseman, not a particularly good corner outfielder. And again, can we afford $2.5 million for someone who we really only want to play against left-handed pitching and hopefully only has about 200 at-bats a year? Don't know. Ryan Stone, who's been the other portion of our first base platoon the last few seasons, will be back. Bit of a down year for him, but he was still productive. Hit .273, 34 doubles, 5 triples, and 22 home runs. Drove in only 74 runs this year, which is a career low for him in a full season, but still put up a 111 WRC plus and a 2.2 WAR for us. He also is a guy who conceivably could get some time in a corner outfield spot, particularly left field. But if we move on from McElroy, that likely means that Stone will be our first baseman. He remains a guy, though, with very significant splits between his ability against righties and his ability against lefties, which is why McElroy has had some value. No different this past season. Monster with a 119 WRC plus against right-handed pitching. He had a -1 WRC plus against left-handed pitching, and over the course of his career, those figures are not dissimilar. So we've only talked about 5 players at this point, and we could be moving on from Romo, we could be moving on from McElroy, and we could be moving on from the next couple guys we're going to talk about too. Marcelo Meyer has been a middle infielder for us ever since we picked him up in a trade with Boston 6 years ago. Primarily been our starting second baseman for the past few seasons. .295 batting average this year with a 118 WRC plus, so very productive offensively. Had 32 doubles for us, also stole 15 bases, put up a 3.3 WAR. He's also a left-handed hitting middle infielder. Romo, switch hitter that we've talked about. Meyer, a left-handed batter. And there's a few other left-handed hitters on this team who we could be losing this offseason. So there's an argument to try to figure out a way to keep one of these left-handed hitters we're going to be talking about around. The issue and the concern with Meyer is the money he's looking for. Almost $19 million a year for 6 years. He's going to be 31 shortly. He's already fragile physically. He's good on the base paths. He's good defensively, and he's been a more than acceptable hitter for us over the years. But given that he's looking to almost double the money he made from his final arbitration-eligible season, could be the end of Meyer's tenure in Colorado. Similar thing about Colt Keith. He's been with us for the last 2 years, left-handed hitting third baseman, hit 13 homers and 56 ribbies for us this year in 530 at-bats, so he was only a slightly above average offensive player for us. Still put up a 2.3 WAR, a more than capable player. He is in the final year of a 3-year contract. We've got a team option for $10 million for him next year. If we bring him back, he is likely once again our starting third baseman. The question is whether that $10 million will be money well spent, given that we do have some options, most notably Derby Mahez in the minor leagues, that could be able to take over at third base for us, and Mahez realistically also could take over for us at second base for Meyer. 2 infielders that almost certainly will be back with us, Rosnile DePaula. This is a guy who really exploded onto the scene for us this year. 282 average with 27 doubles and 21 home runs and 451 at-bats. Put up a 128 WRC plus and a 3.5 WAR. Looks like a more than competent offensive major leaguer who's competent defensively, not an incredible defensive player. So if we ended up moving DePaula to second base, that's definitely a downgrade defensively from Meyer. If we moved him to third base, that's probably similar to the defense that we got out of Colt Keith. But part of the reason that we could conceivably move on from both Meyer and Keith is that we do have DePaula around. And Ezequiel Tovar remains a very important player for us. The 32-year-old is fragile physically. He missed an entire season not that long ago in 2030. But in the 3 years since then, he has driven in exactly 78 runs each year. So very consistent from that perspective. A little more pop in the bat this year with 39 doubles and 23 home runs. Got the OPS up to 849 and the WRC plus up to 128. Still an excellent defensive player, captain personality. He is signed for another 3 seasons, including a player option in the third and final season of the 5 years that are left on his contract. But he's not exactly what he was from when we took over this series. His first 4 years with us, he was consistently a 5.5 to 7 WAR player. Then he had that major injury that cost him all of 2030. Since then, he's been more of a 4 to 5 WAR guy. But given that he remains a productive offensive player and a very good defensive shortstop, even though we're always concerned about injury with him, a $23.2 million price tag for a shortstop who is a Gold Glove winner, a Silver Slugger winner, a 4-time All-Star, and now a 2-time World Champion, who is still delivering above average zone rating and defensive efficiency at shortstop, is not an unreasonable amount to be spending on him. And we'll finish up the roster review, at least, by looking at our outfielders. Similar to what we talked about at catcher and in the infield, there is potential for some turnover here. One guy who will almost certainly be back is Ted Miller, the former second-round draft choice, was a first-time All-Star this year, hit .281 with 24 homers and 75 ribbies for us, put up a 144 WRC plus and a WAR of close to 3. He is capable of playing a corner outfield spot or first base, but he was primarily our DH this year, started just 18 games in left field, and also played very briefly at right field and frighteningly shortstop at one point when we must have had some pretty significant injuries. Kevin Roberts Jr. is a very strong contender for back-to-back MVP award. Won it last year and arguably was better this year. Led the league in runs for a second straight season, although he didn't lead the league in homers or ribbies this year. His 39 homers and his 101 ribbies are still a very impressive number. Stole 32 bases, so he almost doubled his stolen base output from a year ago. Became the first 30-30 player we've had in this playthrough. Also had 41 doubles and 5 triples, hit over 300. Led the league in on-base percentage, slugging percentage, OPS, WRC plus, and batter WAR at 7.8. As I noted last episode, we've given him the official nickname 5 Tools since he does everything. He's also developed that captain personality recently. This is a guy who we were able to pick 5th overall in 2026, and he certainly, in these early stages of his career, just 25 years old, looks like he can put together a Hall of Fame type resume. Already won an MVP, already a 2-time All-Star, already a 2-time World Series champion, won the NLCS MVP award 2 years ago, and he's already a 2-time World Series MVP, and looks like he can potentially still get better from where we think he is today. Truly one of the premier players in all of baseball, and glad to have him on board and locked up for the better part of the next decade. Roman Anthony, a guy we picked up before the trade deadline to take over from Dean West as our center fielder against right-handed pitching. Anthony put up an 84 WRC plus for us, was half a win above replacement, but he played for us close to league average defensive center field while not being a total disaster offensively. Certainly not a guy who we expect to have back, though. He's looking for $19 million a year for 3 years, given his limited offensive production and the fact that he's going to be 30 next year and he's fragile physically. That does not seem like a realistic guy for us to bring back. Dean West, also a 29-year-old center fielder, former 5th-round pick, 64 WRC plus for us in the majors this year and 187 at-bats. He was ultimately below replacement level for us this year. Defensively, still one of our more interesting options in center field, particularly since we don't necessarily want to play Roberts there every day, given the wear and tear on his body. But West is fragile physically at this point, and he's set to make about $3 million in arbitration next year. If we're sure that he's going to be on the major league roster, that's probably not a horrible price to pay for someone who's a 4th outfielder and a part-time center fielder. But if we're not confident that he's going to hit enough to deserve a major league roster spot, and at this point, he's got parts of 5 seasons in the majors, and he's put up a 71 WRC plus, never been anything close to a league average offensive player. $3 million, if we view him more as a 5th outfielder or a 4A guy, is probably not a commitment we're going to be willing to make. Trent Clausen is actually another guy that we kind of near a decision point on. The former 1st-round pick has been up with us for over 3 years now, so he's headed to arbitration for the first time, set to make a little under $2 million. The right-handed hitting outfielder is on paper a more than competent hitter against left-handed pitching. Unfortunately, given his 6-foot height and his ratings, he's not really a realistic option to consider for a platoon at first base if we did move on from Mr. McElroy. Clausen, coming off of an awful year for us, hit just a $188 in 181 at-bats. similar to Drew Romo, his WRC plus just gets progressively worse, and his WAR just gets progressively worse over the past 3 years. Unlike Romo, Clausen is only 28, so he should be close to the prime of his career. The question is if we're really viewing him as a platoon outfield type who's only going to start 40 some odd games for us a year. Is it really worth having him on the roster for a couple $1 million? And last but certainly not least is a guy who had an epic postseason run for us this year after another outstanding regular season, and that is Gus Nieves, right fielder / DH for us, although he did play a lot more right field this year with 118 starts than he has in some recent seasons, probably a contributor to our weaker defense this year. But when you go out and you lead the league with a career-best 52 homers and 139 ribbies while putting up a 141 WRC plus, and scoring almost 100 runs, we're probably going to be willing to deal with the fact that you aren't a dynamic defensive player. Nieves, who we signed as a free agent as an experienced player out of Cuba 6 years ago, has had a outstanding career with us, led the league in homers and ribbies in 4 of his 6 seasons, also led the league in runs 2 years in a row before his teammate Kevin Roberts Jr. has taken that title the last couple of years. The 32-year-old, honestly, 6 years into his career, has a interesting resume if he keeps playing the way he has for another 6 or so years for the Hall of Fame. Already has 261 homers and 715 ribbies. If he's as productive for the next 6 seasons as he has been, he's a 500 homer and over 1,400 ribby guy, which in a very short career would certainly make him a strong Hall of Fame candidate. Have to think now that he's going to be 33 at the beginning of next year that there will be some regression over the next few years, and he's going to be less productive in his mid to late 30s than he was in his late 20s and early 30s. But this is a guy who won an MVP and a Rookie of the Year for us. His first year with us, as I noted, led the league in homers and ribbies 4 out of his 6 seasons, 5-time All-Star, 3-time Silver Slugger, and he probably will add a 4th this year, 2-time World Series champion, and he was a Wild Card Series MVP in 2029, the LCS MVP this year, and historic postseason for him this year. Hit over 400 with 8 homers and 21 ribbies in just 48 at-bats for us this year. A ridiculous 304 WRC plus. I believe 5 of those 8 home runs happened in the National League Championship Series where he was the MVP. Just an incredibly productive player for us, and he, although he's heading into the last year of his contract and making some big money, given that he remains incredibly productive, will almost certainly be back with us next year. The switch hitter does give us a little bit of insurance if we're to move on from some of those left-handed hitters we talked about, notably Anthony, who we're definitely moving on from, and then Meyer, Keith, and West, who could all be on a different team next year as well. As I think about this roster right now, first baseman Ryan Stone and DH/left fielder Ted Miller are the only left-handed hitters that we're definitely going to have on the team next year. And with Romo likely departing, Nieves is the only switch hitter who's definitely on the team next year. So feel like if we can figure out a path to maybe bring back 1 or 2 of the left-handed hitters we've talked about. And again, that's Meyer, that's Keith, that's West. I won't even mention Anthony because we're not going to spend that money on him. But would not be the worst thing in the world if we bring back one of those left-handed hitters and or try to perhaps find a lefty in free agency who can contribute for us at a position of need. So, as we noted, there's definitely potential for a lot of turnover among position players this upcoming offseason, and also potentially some turnover among our pitching staff. Among our pitching staff as well. Although I think that's more manageable. As I noted, I think the guys we would most likely be moving on from among the pitchers would be the debate between Dylan Jordan and Isaiah Shader, and I tend to think right now I'm leaning towards bringing Dylan Jordan back because he is a better player than Isaiah Shader, and we are still a team that intends to be very competitive next year. And before we finish off the episode, two last things that I want to do. First is we'll take a look at a few of our former Rockies and what they have been doing. Adile Amador, who was a very important infielder for us for many years, let him leave as a free agent a couple years ago. He's been pretty productive with the Yankees, hit .250 this past year, 22 homers, 82 ribbies, also stole 21 bases, put up a 123 WRC plus and a 5.2 WAR. I know he had one big year for us, but that probably a career high. Yeah, that 5.2 WAR, even bigger than the 4 WAR that he had for us back in 2030. So he has been very productive in his late 20s and early 30s for the Yankees. Charlie Condon, a guy we traded away 2 off seasons ago, hit .222 in 54 major league at-bats for the Angels this year. Spent most of the year with their AAA affiliate where he did have 29 homers. But Condon, who was one of the top prospects in the Rockies organization when we took this playthrough over, has not developed into the type of offensive player that we hoped he might. Center fielder Brenton Doyle hit .224 in 424 at-bats for the Astros. He was our outstanding defensive center fielder for the first several years of this playthrough. Was a regular Gold Glove winner at center field for us, and he's actually now won a couple at Houston as well. But only a 69 WRC plus and barely above replacement level, as he's not as dynamic and talented defensively at the age of 35 as he used to be. Also remains fragile physically. Taking a look at a couple of our former pitchers as well. Jesus Luzardo, we ended up facing in the World Series where he was a reliever for the White Sox. 3.86 ERA in 11 games for the White Sox this year. Luzardo was a important signing for us in the relatively early stages of this playthrough. He was our ace in not in Oakland. I'm thinking back to last year. He was our ace in Colorado for most of his time with us, 2027 to 2030. Lost the spot in the rotation in 2031 after some injury issues, but he won 10-plus games for us 4 straight years, including 17 in both 2029 and 2030. He was still a member of the first World Championship team we had 2 years ago, but looks like he is in the late stages of his career at this point. Orion Kerkering was an important reliever for us for a few seasons, but just got too expensive, signed as a free agent with Detroit. He is actually signed an extension with them. It looks like he made $17 million a year for 3 years, even though he's 32 years old, signed a 3-year extension at $18.8 million a year. So Kerkering going to remain an important player for the Tigers. 5-7 record with 12 saves and a 4.53 ERA this year. Still put up a 2 WAR, but given the money that he's going to be paid and the fact that he's heading into his mid-30s, I think that it's better that the Tigers are going to be paying him that money than we are. And next time around, we will do our deep dive on the top prospects in our organization and some of the other most interesting prospects around baseball. But we'll finish off this episode by talking about our initial thoughts for the development lab. Really focused on major league or close to major league young talent this time around with what I intend to do with the long programs. Catcher Mike Girard, who we already talked about, going to work on generating bat speed, see if we can ensure that in addition to his great defense, he at least will be hitting some home runs for us when he's healthy and in the lineup. Pitcher Bernie Barrera, we talked about him. He could be competing for a spot in the rotation next year. Feel like we've got the ability to improve his movement a little bit. And similar with Leo Martinez, he's been outstanding for us, but he's only 23 years old, signed for many years into the future, and looks like he has some potentially untapped potential as well. Brian Stoops, who is likely to be competing for a spot in the rotation with the likes of Barrera, also going to be working on his control for the former first-round draft pick, still listed as the number 56 prospect in baseball. Derby Mahez, finally healthy after an injury-plagued season. We're going to work on generating some bat speed there. Hopefully he can hit some home runs for us. Like him defensively, like his speed, like him in the clubhouse. Similar to Girard, we question his bat overall. If he can at least hit some homers for us and hopefully tap some of that untapped power potential, could make him more valuable. And Five Tools doesn't have much to improve on, but we think that his contact can be improved a bit, and we're going to have him work on that as well. So the first 6 spots in the development lab with guys who all have major league experience at this point, and all could be playing significant roles for us next year with those potential departures of both Marcelo Meyer at second and Colt Keith at third. Derby Mahez could be a very important infielder for us next year, even though his development has not been as rapid as we would have hoped. The other 2 spots are going to go to the top 2 prospects in our organization. Dan Patterson, still viewed as the number 8 prospect in baseball. We think he's got a reasonably high ceiling. The OSA much higher on him than our scout is. But we are going to try to work on Mr. Patterson's pitch movement. And then Phil Dingwell, former supplemental first-round pick in 2030, the number 34 prospect in baseball. We're going to work on his plate discipline, as that's an area where we think he can improve as well. So still subject to some change and revision before we actually start moving forward. But that is our initial plan for the development lab with the 8 spots that we allow ourselves to use this offseason. And with that, we will call it an episode. As always, thank you for watching. Next time we will, as I mentioned, be focused on a deep review of our minor league system, a review of some of the other top prospects in baseball, and then we're also going to start moving forward with the early days of this offseason, which ultimately means we're going to need to be making some decisions. Jackson Peavy, Justin Gibson, and Adonis Valaire are the only arbitration-eligible players we've already made an offer to. Mentioned earlier, between Jordan and Shader, think only one of them is likely to be back with us. And then the left-handed hitting platoon type guys, the right-handed hitting platoon type guys in the case of McElroy and Clausen. The left-handed hitting Dean West are also guys heading into their late 20s, arbitration eligible, and making money that at least makes us question whether we want to bring them back. We've also got a decision on Luke Little, as we talked about. Think that Meyer, Anthony, and Garcia, the other 3 potential free agents, are all going to be too expensive for us. With Meyer looking for around $19 million, there's an argument to just extend him for a year with that $20 million offer, but I don't know that I really want to spend that kind of money on him when, as we've talked about, we've got Tovar entrenched at short, and we conceivably could cover second base and third base next year with Rosnile, DePaula, and Derby Mahez in some combination. Think it might be time for a little bit of infusion of youth in the infield, and I do worry that he would probably accept that qualifying offer if I knew he was going to leave and we could pick up a draft pick as compensation for his departure, I'd happily do it. But I tend to think that he would accept that offer if we made it to him, and I'm just not sure that we actually want him back. So a lot to think about as we get ready for this offseason. Always interested in hearing from the Worldwide Scouting Department as to what you suggest we do with some of these decisions. And if you are watching and listening to this episode, you are a member of the Worldwide Scouting Department. Always helpful to hear the feedback. Until our next episode, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.